Guys, you won't believe what I discovered about my new neighbor. Every single day, a man shows up at her door with unusual flowers, and look, she's married, you know? Here I am, at my little window, watching everything through the crack in the curtain. And with each passing day, this story gets stranger. What started as simple neighborly curiosity ended up turning into an investigation that left me speechless. So girls, get ready because this story has twists and turns you never imagined. I thought I knew what was going to happen, but in the end, oh my God, how wrong I was. Those of you watching, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment letting us know if you've ever experienced something similar. And please don't leave the video because the ending of this story is breathtaking. Well, I'll start from the beginning. About 2 months ago, a new girl moved into the house on the corner, that yellow house that sat empty for ages after Mr. Antonio passed away. At first, I didn't think much of it. You know, new people in the neighborhood are always like that. But then I started to notice she was very reserved, almost never going out. And when she did, it was always with her head down, a bit hurried. Her house is right in my line of sight when I'm doing my chores in the kitchen. You know how it is, right, girls? We always end up noticing the neighborhood scene. It's natural for women, isn't it? And look, I'm not a gossip, you know? I just observe. It's different. In the early days, I'd see her leaving early, around 7 in the morning, always carrying a large grocery bag. She'd return late in the afternoon, sometimes after dark. Her husband, a tall, dark-haired man in his early 30s, had a different schedule. He'd leave later and return earlier than her. I thought it was strange, but every family has its own routine, right? It all started on a Monday. I was washing the breakfast dishes when I saw a man standing in front of her house, tall, well-dressed, holding a beautiful bouquet of red roses. I thought, wow, how romantic. It must be a surprise from her husband. But there you have it, ladies. Her husband had just left for work. The man rang the doorbell. She opened the door, and guess what? She accepted the flowers. Not only did she accept, she smiled, thanked him, and they even chatted there at the door for about 5 minutes. I almost dropped the dish I was washing. I was so surprised. So that's where my investigation began. Do you think I'd let a situation like this go unnoticed? Just imagine, a married woman receiving flowers from a man who's clearly not her husband, and with a straight face, on her doorstep, for everyone to see. The next day, Tuesday, there I was again, in my strategic position at the kitchen sink. And lo and behold, at 9 o'clock sharp, the same man appeared again. This time, with sunflowers. Oh, sunflowers. Who gives sunflowers to a married woman? And she, once again, all smiles, accepted the flowers as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I started writing down the times on a little notepad I left in the kitchen drawer. It might seem like overkill to you, but I needed to understand the pattern of this whole situation. And girls, when we have a hunch, there's no way around it, right? A woman's intuition rarely fails. On Wednesday, white carnations. On Thursday, daisies. On Friday, they couldn't believe it. Orchids! Orchids, people, those expensive flowers. Now I was absolutely certain something was wrong. No husband in this world sends flowers to his wife every day, much less orchids. And worst of all, her husband kept leaving early for work, completely oblivious to what was happening right under his nose. It made me indignant. I kept thinking, my God, how can a man be so oblivious? How can he not notice that his wife is receiving flowers from another man every day? For the first 2 weeks, I tried to identify this mysterious man. He always arrived at the same time, driving a very tidy black car, one of those elegant sedans. He wasn't from the neighborhood, I was sure of that, because I've known everyone here for the more than 15 years I've lived in this house. He was very presentable, always wearing a dress shirt, with neatly cut hair, and the appearance of someone who took care of himself. But what struck me most was how naturally he did it. There was nothing hidden or furtive about it. It was as if it were an established routine between them. The neighbor, whose name I later discovered was Maria, always received the flowers with that same smile. Sometimes they talked a little more, sometimes less, but there was always this exchange of words right there at the door. And here I was, dying to know what the hell they were talking about. One thing that really intrigued me was her behavior after receiving the flowers. She didn't put them in vases, nor did she leave them in the living room or kitchen as decoration. I kept an eye out for them in the windows, but I never saw anything. Where did all those flowers end up? And what's more, on weekends, the routine changed completely. Saturdays and Sundays, no flowers, no mysterious man. On those days, Maria would leave early with that large bag and only return late in the day, sometimes even after her husband. What was this mystery? I started obsessing over this situation, girls. I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I kept waiting for 9 in the morning like someone waiting for an 8 o'clock soap opera. And wasn't it true that the man never failed? Rain or shine, Monday through Friday, he was there, punctually, with the flowers. After a month of observing this routine, I started to form theories in my head. The first and most obvious was that they were lovers. But then I thought, what kind of lover would appear in broad daylight on the woman's doorstep for everyone to see? It didn't make sense. The second theory was that it might be a relative of hers. A brother, a cousin, who knows? But what kind of relative brings flowers every day? And why only Monday through Friday? And why was her husband never present at these gatherings? The third theory, and this one worried me even more, was that it might be some kind of blackmail, you know? We sometimes see these things in movies. A man who knows a woman's secret and uses it to get closer to her. The flowers would be a disguised way of maintaining contact. I confess I lost a few sleepless nights thinking about all this. I felt responsible somehow, you know, like you should have told her husband what was going on. But at the same time, I wasn't sure. What if I was wrong? What if you had a completely innocent explanation for all this? One morning, I was so eager to understand the situation that I decided to pretend I was sweeping the sidewalk when the man arrived. I wanted to hear at least a snippet of their conversation. And that's when I heard the first clue to the puzzle. When he delivered the flowers, they were yellow lilies that day. I heard him say something about weekend and package. Package? What package was that? Were the flowers just an excuse to deliver something else? That night, I barely slept. I kept going over that word in my head. Package. What could this man be delivering to Maria besides flowers? And why only during the week? Why never on weekends? The weeks passed, and I continued my discreet surveillance. I had already filled 2 small sheets with the times, types of flowers, and duration of conversations. I was becoming a true amateur detective. And girls, the more I observed, the more convinced I became that there was something very strange about the situation. Her husband's behavior also began to intrigue me. He continued with his usual routine, leaving early in the morning and returning mid-afternoon. But I began to notice that sometimes he would come home and stay outside for a while, as if pondering something. Could he already be suspicious? One afternoon, I saw him arriving earlier than usual. It was just on a day when the flower man had come that morning with some gorgeous pink roses. I thought, okay, now there's going to be trouble. But nothing happened. The husband entered the house normally, greeted his wife, and everything continued as usual. This made me even more confused. How is it possible for a man not to notice that his house always smells of different flowers? How is it possible for him not to be surprised by the number of flowers he must have in there? Unless he knew everything. This possibility gave me chills. What if her husband knew about the situation and was pretending not to? What if it was one of those complicated situations we see on talk shows? My God, what kind of trouble had I gotten myself into just by watching through the window? For those of you watching, tell me in the comments, Have you ever been in a situation like this, where you've been observing something strange in the neighborhood and couldn't stop thinking about it? Because I guarantee it was consuming all my thoughts. The situation became even more intriguing when I began to notice that Maria had begun to change. She, who had always been somewhat shy and reserved, was smiling more communicative. Even with me, when we met at the corner store, she was more talkative. And she always asked about plants, flowers, that kind of thing. I thought it was strange, but I answered calmly. She once asked me if I knew how to preserve cut flowers for longer. Another time, she wanted to know about types of fertilizer for ornamental plants. At the time, I thought she might be looking to start a garden, but now I see her questions had a completely different motive. The flower man continued to show up religiously. It had been almost 2 months of this routine, and I had already identified a pattern in the flowers. Mondays were always roses, Tuesdays sunflowers, Wednesdays carnations, Thursdays daisies, and Fridays always more expensive flowers like orchids, lilies, or anthuriums. This regularity made me think that perhaps it wasn't a sentimental issue, but a commercial one. But what kind of business would this be? And why in a married woman's home? And why only during the week? I was becoming an expert on my neighbors' routines. I knew what time they left, what time they returned, what day of the week they shopped, everything. But the flower situation remained a complete mystery to me. It was then that I made a decision that completely changed my perspective on this whole story. I decided to follow the flower man to see where he came from and where he went after leaving Maria's house. I know it may seem like an exaggeration, but my curiosity was already peaking. The following Friday, I made plans to leave the house around his usual time. I waited on the corner, pretending I was waiting for a bus, and when I saw his black car approaching, my heart raced. This was my chance to finally understand what was happening. He stopped in front of Maria's house as usual, but this time I was paying attention to other details. The license plate, for example, and also what he took out of the trunk before heading to the front door. It wasn't just flowers. There was a box, not a very large box, but he carried it carefully. When Maria opened the door, she not only received the flowers, but also took the box. What's more, she handed him another box. Guys, there was proof that this wasn't romance, it was business. Some kind of exchange was happening weekly, and the flowers were just a cover. My mind raced. What kind of business was this? What could be in those boxes? And why use the flowers as a disguise? Was it illegal? My God, was my neighbor involved in something wrong? When the man left her house, I followed him from a distance. Luckily, he walked to the end of the street, where he'd parked his car. I managed to note his license plate and also saw which direction he headed when he left. It was toward the city center. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. I kept imagining 1,000 possibilities about what could be happening. Drugs? Stolen goods? Smuggling? My imagination was racing, and every theory I came up with was worse than the last. On Saturday morning, as always, Maria left early with her large bag. But this time, I was paying extra attention. She headed toward the city center, exactly the same direction the flower man had gone the day before. I was starting to piece together the puzzle, but I still couldn't see the whole picture. What I knew so far was this. Every week, Monday through Friday, a man would bring flowers and a box to my neighbor and receive another box in return. On weekends, my neighbor would leave early for downtown, and her husband seemed completely oblivious to all of this. I decided I needed to investigate further. The following weekend, I decided to take a stroll downtown to see if I could learn more about this whole story. And girls, you won't believe what I discovered. It was while walking downtown that I saw the black car parked in front of a flower shop. A large flower shop, the kind that sells flowers for party decorations, weddings, that sort of thing. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the flower man coming out of the shop, carrying several boxes and loading them into his car. Now I was beginning to understand something, but there were still many missing pieces to the puzzle. If he worked at a flower shop, why did he bring flowers to my neighbor every day? And what was in those boxes they exchanged? I decided to go into the florist to try to find out more information. I pretended I was looking for flowers for a birthday and started chatting with the attendant. I asked about deliveries, types of arrangements, that sort of thing. And that's when I discovered the first important clue. The attendant told me they had a very special client, a young woman who made beautiful arrangements to sell on weekends. She would bring the flowers during the week and bring the finished arrangements back on Saturday for them to share with customers. It was a partnership that worked for everyone. Man, my head was exploding. Could my neighbor Maria be this special client? Could this whole daily flowers thing just be a floral arrangement business? But then, why hadn't she ever told me about it? And why didn't her husband seem to know anything? I left the flower shop with more questions than answers, but at least now I had a more positive theory about the whole situation. Maybe it wasn't illegal. Maybe it wasn't an extramarital affair. Maybe it was just an enterprising woman making a few bucks at home. But there were still things that didn't fit with my new theory. Why so much secrecy? Why didn't her husband know? And why had she never mentioned it to me, since I'd always shown an interest in plants and flowers? Over the next week, I observed everything with a different perspective. Now I noticed more details. The care with which the man carried the boxes, the way Maria received them, the time she spent inside the house, handling all those flowers. And there's something I started noticing. Every time the man left, a lovely scent of flowers would waft from her house, a perfume that would waft through the entire street. Sometimes it was sweet, sometimes softer, but always very pleasant. On weekends, when she went out with her large bag, I now suspected she was taking the finished arrangements somewhere, probably to that flower shop downtown. It was all starting to make sense. But it still bothered me that her husband didn't know anything, or at least seemed like he didn't. How is it possible for a man to live in a house where flowers arrive every day, and where his wife fusses with arrangements every day, and he doesn't notice a thing? That's when I started paying attention to his behavior too. And you know what I discovered? He left early every day but always returned mid-afternoon. And guess what day of the week he didn't work? Saturday and Sunday. Exactly the days she went out to sell the arrangements. Had they agreed on this routine precisely so he wouldn't interfere with her work? Was it a matter of male pride, you know? Maybe he didn't like the idea of his wife working, so she did it in secret? This possibility made me sad and indignant at the same time. Sad because I imagined that Maria might have to hide her talent and source of income from her own husband, and indignant because if that were the case, what kind of relationship was this where a woman couldn't even work in peace? But I still wasn't sure about anything. These were just theories based on my observations. I needed more information to be sure of what was really happening. Then an unexpected event occurred that completely changed the course of my investigation. One Thursday morning, I was in my usual spot in the kitchen when I saw the flower man arrive. But this time, he wasn't alone. There was a lady with him. The lady got out of the car and waited outside while he delivered the flowers to Maria. But what caught my attention was Maria's reaction when she saw the lady. She ran out of the house, through the little gate, and hugged the lady so affectionately that even I, from this far away, could feel her emotion. They stood there talking on the sidewalk for about 10 minutes, while the flower man waited patiently nearby. And here I was, practically glued to the window, trying to understand what was going on. When they finally said goodbye, I saw that the lady was crying. It wasn't tears of sadness, it was that emotional kind of crying, you know. And Maria was also visibly moved. They hugged again, and the lady got back in the car. Man, that really got to me. There was a story behind the whole flower situation. A story I couldn't even begin to imagine. Who was that woman? What connection did she have with Maria and the flower man? That night I dreamed of that scene. The loving embrace, the emotion of the two women, the flower man waiting patiently. There was a humanity there, a tenderness, a life story that I couldn't decipher just by watching from afar. The following Friday, I was anxious to see if the lady would return, but it was just the flower man, as usual. He delivered the usual orchids, exchanged the boxes with Maria, and left. But I noticed that Maria stood at the door for a moment, watching the car drive away, as if she were thinking about something important. The weekend arrived, and as always, Maria left early with her big bag. But this time, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I decided to ask her about the flowers when she got back. On Sunday afternoon, when I saw her coming home from her mission, I went out to water the plants on my sidewalk, which didn't really need water, and struck up a conversation with her. "Maria, what a lovely scent always comes from your house," I commented, trying to sound casual. "You have a very beautiful indoor garden, don't you?" She smiled, but I could hear a hint of hesitation in her response. "Oh, thank you, Mrs. Ruth. I really like flowers. And that guy who always comes here to deliver? Is he a florist?" I asked, being more direct. Her expression changed completely. For a moment, she was silent, as if deciding whether to tell me something or not. And then, to my surprise, her eyes filled with tears. "Ms. Ruth, do you have a few minutes to talk?" she asked, and I knew I was finally going to find out the truth about this whole story. We walked into my house, I made some coffee, and she began to tell me a story I never, ever could have imagined. A story that completely changed everything I thought about, the daily flower situation. And girls, you're not leaving, because what I discovered will surprise you as much as it surprised me. The truth behind those daily flowers was more touching and more beautiful than any theory I could have created in my imagination. Maria began by telling me that she did indeed make floral arrangements, but not as a hobby or to earn extra income. The situation was much more serious and moving than that. She told me that her father, Francisco, had a very serious illness, cancer, which required very expensive treatment. Mrs. Ruth, when we learned of the diagnosis, it was like the world had collapsed, she told me, wiping away tears. The treatment is very expensive, and even with health insurance, there are many medications and tests that are not covered. I needed to find a way to help financially. Guys, imagine how I felt at that moment. I was creating theories of extramarital affairs and shady dealings, and in reality, it was a desperate daughter trying to save her father's life. She went on to tell me that she'd always had a knack for flower arrangements, a natural gift she'd had since she was little. "My mom always said I had magic hands for flowers," she recalled, smiling through her tears. That's when she met Ricardo, the man I called the flower man. He worked at the downtown florist and needed someone to make special arrangements for important occasions. Weddings, graduations, company anniversaries, that kind of thing. "At first, it was just on weekends," she explained. "I'd make the arrangements at home on Saturday and Sunday, and on Monday I'd take them to the florist. But the demand grew so much that it had to become a daily thing. Now I understood the whole scheme. Ricardo brought fresh flowers every day, along with the customers' orders in a little box. Maria made the repairs at home and returned the finished flowers in another box the next day. It was a perfect system." "But Maria," I asked, "why such secrecy? Why doesn't your husband know?" Her response broke my heart. "Mrs. Ruth, my husband already works so hard to support our family. He works 2 jobs, leaves early, and comes back late every day. I didn't want him to feel like he couldn't take care of me. And besides," she hesitated a bit, "he was already blaming himself for not being able to pay for my father's treatment alone. I didn't want him to know I was working to cover this expense." Girls, I almost started crying right along with her. Imagine the situation. A woman making flower arrangements at home, hidden from her husband, to raise money for her sick father's treatment. And here I am, creating cheating theories. "And that lady who came with Ricardo the other day?" I asked, remembering the emotional scene I had witnessed. Maria's face lit up. "Ah, that was Donna Helena, Ricardo's mother. She was the one who came up with the daily delivery scheme when she learned about my situation. And do you know why? Because she went through the same thing a few years ago, when her husband was undergoing cancer treatment. Guys, the story was getting more and more touching. Donna Helena, who had already gone through the drama of having a family member with cancer, was touched by Maria's situation and helped create a work system that allowed her to earn money without her husband knowing. She came here the other day to tell me she'd landed a very special client, a hotel that wants weekly arrangements for the lobby. That's going to be a really good income for me, Maria said, and I finally understood why they were both so excited that day. And the scent of flowers that always comes from your house, I asked, curious about this other detail. Maria laughed. Oh, that's right. It's just that I work on the back porch, you know. I'm there all day fussing with the flowers, arranging them. The scent fills the whole house. Sometimes I worry about whether it's bothering the neighbors. Bother? Imagine. It's delicious, I said. And it was true. Now that I knew where that perfume came from, it was even more special. Maria also told me why she only worked during the week. Weekends are for delivering arrangements and also for visiting my father in the hospital. That's the time my husband and I have to be with him, talk, and support him. These are the most important moments of the week for us. Now I understood why she left early on Saturdays and Sundays with that big bag. It wasn't just to deliver arrangements, it was also to visit her sick father. And her husband, whom I thought knew nothing, actually knew about his sick father. He just didn't know that his wife was working to help with his treatment. Maria, can I ask you a question? Why don't you tell your husband about the job? I'm sure he would be proud of you. She sighed. You know, Mrs. Ruth, my husband is a very proud man. He already blames himself so much for not being able to pay for my father's treatment alone. If he finds out I'm working, he'll feel like he's failing as a provider for the family. I don't want to put that pressure on him anymore. Guys, can you imagine the love that was in that whole situation? A woman working in secret to avoid hurting her husband's pride, but at the same time helping to save her father's life. And here I am, thinking nonsense. And how is your father's treatment going? I asked, concerned. Her face lit up again. He's doing well, Mrs. Ruth. The doctors are optimistic. Thanks to God and this work with the flowers, we were able to pay for all the medicine and extra tests. I think he'll recover. At that moment, I felt like the silliest person in the world. How could I have imagined so many bad things about such a beautiful situation? Maria was literally saving her father's life with her fairy hands, and here I was, inventing romance and shady dealings. But the conversation didn't end there. Maria shared details that helped me understand the whole situation even better. She showed me some photos of the arrangements she made, and wow, what talent! They were true works of art, sophisticated, creative arrangements, full of personality. It started as a hobby, she told me. I always enjoyed working with plants, but I never thought it could become a source of income. It was when my dad was diagnosed that I started researching ways to make money from home. She explained that she spent weeks studying flower arrangement techniques online, watching videos, and reading articles. I stayed up until the wee hours of the morning learning about flower types, durability, color combinations, and conservation techniques. My husband thought I was watching a soap opera, she laughed. The first arrangement she made was to test her skills. I made a simple arrangement with flowers I bought at the market, just to see if I really had it. When I finished, I was amazed at the result. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Carmen, who lives 3 houses down, who gave Maria her first opportunity. She needed an arrangement for her wedding anniversary, and saw one I had made to decorate my own table. She liked it so much that she ordered one just like it. From that first project onward, orders began to pour in. First from neighbors, then friends of neighbors, then acquaintances of friends. Word of mouth worked really well. People liked my arrangements so much that they always recommended them to others. It was when demand grew that Maria met Ricardo at the downtown florist. I was there to buy flowers for arrangements, and he noticed I was buying large quantities and specific varieties. We struck up a conversation, and I ended up telling him about my work. Ricardo, who had been working in the industry for years, immediately recognized Maria's talent. He told me I had a special eye for arrangements, that I could create compositions he'd never seen before, and that's when he proposed the partnership. The proposal was simple but brilliant. Ricardo would supply fresh flowers daily, along with the specific requests of the florist's clients. Maria would make the arrangements at home, in her own time, calmly and meticulously. The next day, Ricardo would pick up the finished arrangements and bring new flowers and new orders. At first, it was just 2 or 3 arrangements a day, but the quality of my work led clients to specifically ask for that girl who does the special arrangements. Soon I was making arrangements for weddings, graduations, corporate events. Girls, do you see how life takes turns? What I thought was something suspicious was actually a story of overcoming obstacles, talent, and family love. Maria told me that the money she earned from the arrangements was making all the difference in her father's treatment. We were able to pay for more modern tests, imported medications, and even appointments with specialists from other states. Without this extra income, it would have been impossible. But what touched me most was when she told me about the personal fulfillment she felt doing that work. Ms. Ruth, you can't imagine how gratifying it is to know that my arrangements are part of special moments in people's lives. Weddings, birthdays, graduations. I'm present on the most important days in the lives of people I don't even know. She showed me photos of some weddings where her arrangements were used. This one was for a beach wedding. The bride wanted something tropical, yet elegant, and this one was for a graduation. The family wanted bright yet sophisticated colors. The pride in her voice was evident. And the technique. How did you learn to make such beautiful arrangements? I asked, genuinely curious. Lots of research, lots of trial and error, she laughed. In the beginning, I wasted a lot of flowers because I didn't know how to preserve them properly. I didn't know the cutting or hydration techniques. But Ricardo was very patient and taught me many tricks of the trade. She explained to me that each type of flower has its own peculiarities. For roses, for example, you have to cut the stem underwater to keep out air. Sunflowers last longer if you add a drop of bleach to the vase water. Orchids are more delicate and require special care. And how do you manage to do all this without your husband noticing? I asked, still intrigued by this part of the story. Maria smiled. He leaves early for his first job and stays out all day. When he gets home, I've already finished the day's arrangements and put them away on the back porch. I arrange the remaining flowers around the house as decoration. He thinks it's just my taste in flowers. She told me she's developed a very organized routine. Right after he leaves, I organize all the flowers Ricardo brought, separating them by type, color, and size. Then I check the orders and get to work. I usually finish everything before lunch. And on weekends. Oh, on the weekends, that's when I deliver the finished arrangements to the florist and collect the payment. And that's also when we visit my father in the hospital. My husband goes with me on these visits. He doesn't suspect anything about the work. Her organization was impressive. Maria had transformed the back porch into a veritable floral arrangement studio. I have all the materials: floral foam, ribbons, vases, baskets, everything neatly organized so no one will notice. And there was never a problem? Your husband never almost found out? One time he came home early from work and almost saw everything. I had just finished a giant arrangement for a wedding and was on the balcony admiring my work. When I heard the gate, I ran and hid everything under a blanket, pretending I was hanging out laundry. She laughed, remembering the situation. What impressed me most was her passion for her work. Ms. Ruth, you can't imagine the satisfaction it is to see an arrangement come together, starting with loose flowers and ending with a harmonious, beautiful composition full of life. It's almost magical. She told me about some special work she had done. There was an arrangement for a marriage proposal that Ricardo brought me. The guy wanted something that represented his love story with his girlfriend. I made a heart-shaped arrangement with red roses and white floral details that represented the pure moments of their relationship. When I found out she said yes, I cried with emotion. Another remarkable piece was a funeral arrangement. The family wanted something that represented the deceased's joyful personality. I created an arrangement full of vibrant colors with sunflowers, colorful daisies, flowers that conveyed life and joy, even at such a sad time. And how is your father's situation now? I asked, worried. He's getting much better, thank God. The oncologist said the tumor has shrunk considerably. With the medications we were able to buy and the more advanced tests, the treatment is being much more effective. I think he'll be cured in a few months. The joy in her voice was contagious. All that secret work, all that dedication was paying off. Her father was recovering, and she had discovered a talent she hadn't even known she had. And Ricardo? What's it like working with him? Ricardo is a wonderful person. Very professional, always punctual, and always brings the flowers in the best condition. And his mother, Mrs. Helena, is a sweetheart. She was the one who came up with the idea for the daily deliveries when she learned I needed to keep them a secret. Maria told me that Donna Helena had gone through a similar situation years ago. Her husband also didn't like the idea of her working, so she sold sweets secretly to help with household expenses. When she learned of my situation, she wanted to help me in any way she could. Is that why she came here the other day? Exactly! She came to tell me personally about the contract with the hotel. It's a job that will last at least a year, with weekly arrangements for the lobby and special events. With this guaranteed income, I'll be able to not only cover all of Dad's treatment, but also start saving a little money. Guys, imagine how I was feeling. I was worried about an extramarital affair. And in fact, the story was about a female support network. Women helping other women. Maria, don't you want to tell your husband? I'm sure he would be proud of your talent and dedication. She looked thoughtful. You know, Mrs. Ruth, I've been thinking about this. Now that Dad's treatment is going well, and I have this contract secured with the hotel, maybe it's time to share this achievement with him. I think he deserves to know. We talked for another hour. Maria showed me her notebook where she wrote down all her requests and made a point of showing me some photos of the most beautiful arrangements she had ever made. That girl's talent was impressive. As she left, I thought about how quick we are to judge situations we don't fully understand. I was so convinced there was something wrong with the daily flowers, when in fact, it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever witnessed. The following Monday, when I saw Ricardo arriving with the day's flowers, my heart filled with joy instead of curiosity. Now I knew those flowers would turn into beautiful arrangements, bringing joy to other people's lives, and that the money generated would help save a life. During the week, whenever I smelled the scent of flowers coming from Maria's house, I smiled. I knew she was there, on the back porch, creating her floral masterpieces, putting love and care into each arrangement. On Saturday, when I saw her leaving early with her large bag, I now knew she was bringing joy to others and hope to her family. What a change of perspective, isn't it, girls? And there's more. That Sunday, when she returned from visiting her father, she came knocking on my door, all excited. Mrs. Ruth, my father is much better. The doctor said that if he keeps this up, he could be discharged in 2 months. Her joy was so great that it was impossible not to be moved by it. And you know what? I told him about my work with flowers, and he was so proud. He said he always knew I had golden hands for these things. A few weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, Maria invited me to meet her father. Francisco was home, recovered, still undergoing treatment, but already much better. He was a friendly, lively man who spoke proudly of his daughter's talent. Mrs. Ruth, have you seen the arrangements my girl makes? They're the work of an artist," he said proudly. "When I heard she was doing this to help me, I was so touched." That day, I finally met Ricardo in person as well. He had come to pick up some special arrangements Maria had made for a corporate event. He was exactly as I'd imagined, a polite, professional young man who spoke about Maria's work with great respect and admiration. "Donna Ruth, your neighbor, is one of the best professionals I've ever met in the field. She has a creativity and care that make all the difference. Clients always specifically compliment her arrangements," he told me. Donna Helena was also there. A sweet, caring woman, she told me about her own experience helping with her husband's treatment. "It's difficult when we find ourselves in a situation like this, but discovering that we can contribute in some way gives us incredible strength to carry on." It was that afternoon that Maria made a revelation to me that surprised me once again. "Donna Ruth, I decided to tell my husband about the job." "And how did he react?" I asked anxiously. At first, he was a little upset that I had hidden it, but then he understood my reasons. And you know what he told me? That he always suspected there was something different because I was happier, more fulfilled. He said he saw a satisfaction in my eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. Maria's husband not only approved of the work, but also offered to help on the weekends. Now he takes me to deliver the arrangements on Saturday, and on Sunday we go visit my father together. It's become a family affair. Wow, what a beautiful ending to a story that I thought would have a complicated ending. Not only was Maria's father recovering, but she had discovered a fulfilling profession, and she also had the full support of her family. And there's more. With the success of her work, Maria decided to formalize her business. I'm getting the documents to open a MEI, Individual Micro-Entrepreneur. I want this to become my official job, and I'm already thinking about teaching other women how to make arrangements too. Her idea was to create a group of women who would work with floral arrangements, each from their own home, but forming a support network and sharing experiences. Imagine how many women could benefit from learning this profession. How many families could earn extra income. You're not leaving because what I discovered after this whole conversation will surprise you even more. The story doesn't end there, girls. There were still more twists and turns to come. The following week, Ricardo came up with a proposal that thrilled everyone. The florist had received a massive order to decorate a 3-day wedding on a farm, complete with a ceremony, wedding reception, and after-party. There were over 200 different arrangements. Donna Maria, only you could handle a job of this size. The family specifically asked for your arrangements after seeing the work you did at the bride's sister's wedding, Ricardo explained. It was the biggest project Maria had ever received. Donna Ruth. There were table arrangements, altar arrangements, arrangements for the ballroom decor, arrangements for the bride and groom's suites, arrangements for the entrance to the farm. It was a whole week's work. To handle the order, Maria had to reorganize her entire routine. Her husband asked for a few days off from work to help. It became a family affair. He helped me sort the flowers, clean the stems, and organize the materials. It was the first time we'd worked together on something like this. During that week, their house became a veritable studio. Flowers were everywhere, arrangements in various stages of development, a bustling scene that drew the attention of the entire neighborhood. That's when everyone in the neighborhood discovered my work. Maria laughed. And do you know what the neighbors' reaction was? Everyone was delighted. The women began ordering arrangements for their own homes as gifts for special occasions. Maria gained customers right on her own street. The farm wedding was a complete success. The family was so pleased they recommended me for other events. And even better, they asked me to decorate their first wedding anniversary too. But the biggest surprise came at the end of that week. When Maria went to deliver the final arrangements, the wedding family gave her an unexpected bonus. It was so much that it paid off all of Dad's treatment debts and still had some left over to start a savings account. That night, Maria and her husband celebrated in a very special way. We had a romantic dinner at home, decorated with some of the flowers left over from the arrangements. It was our own celebration, our family victory. Maria's father, who was already much better, heard about his daughter's success. He said he always knew I was special, but he never imagined that this talent could turn into such a beautiful profession. And folks, the story gets even more moving. Donna Helena, Ricardo's mother, was so impressed with Maria's work that she decided to make an unusual proposal. She invited me to be a partner in a new flower shop specializing in custom arrangements. The idea was to open a space where different professionals specializing in arrangements could work, each with their own style, serving clients looking for something unique and special. It would be like a collective of floral artists, Maria explained to me excitedly. The proposal included a beautiful, conveniently located physical space where clients could see the work being created, participate in the creative process, and understand the artistry behind each arrangement. It would be something completely innovative in our city. Maria was thrilled with the prospect, but she needed to talk to her family before making such a big decision. It's a unique opportunity, but it's also a big step. Leaving working from home to start your own business is a huge responsibility. Her husband was super supportive. He said he always knew I had potential for great things, and that this was my chance to showcase my talent to a wider audience. Her father also fully approved. He said that after everything I'd gone through to help him, he wanted to see me achieve my professional dreams, that it would be the best way to repay all my hard work. And do you know what happened after all this? Maria accepted Donna Helena's proposal. They opened the specialized flower shop, and the business took off in an impressive way. Today, 3 months after our conversation, Maria is a successful businesswoman. Her specialized floristry has become a reference in the city for arrangements for important events. She has a team of 5 women working with her, each specializing in a different type of arrangement. The coolest thing is that I was able to employ other women who also needed extra income for their families, she told me in one of our recent conversations. It's gratifying to know that my story can inspire other women to discover their talents. Her father is completely cured now. The doctors said he's in complete remission. He's still receiving follow-up care, but the intensive treatment is over. The joy in her voice when she told me this was indescribable. And her marriage to her husband? It's even stronger. He told me he admires me even more now, knowing everything I've done for my family, and I feel more fulfilled, more complete as a person and as a professional. The business is doing so well that they're already thinking about expanding. We're exploring the possibility of offering courses for people who want to learn the art of flower arranging. It would be a way to spread knowledge and help more families. Ricardo continues to supply the new flower shop, but now in an even greater partnership. He's become our trend consultant and also helps us find specialty suppliers for imported flowers. Donna Helena became a second mother to Maria. She teaches me not only about business, but also about life. She's a wise woman, full of experience, who always has the right advice at the right time. Girls, when I think about this whole story, I'm moved by the power of female determination. Maria could have resigned herself to her father's difficult situation. She could have waited for others to solve the problem. But no, she went after it, discovered her talent, found people willing to help, and turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth. And me, I learned a valuable lesson about not judging situations I don't fully understand. How many times do we see something strange and jump to conclusions? How many times do we miss the opportunity to hear beautiful stories because we're too busy imagining bad things? Today, when I see Maria leaving home in the morning to go to work at the flower shop, my heart fills with pride. It's as if I've been there for her entire journey, from the beginning of her struggles to her success. And you know what's even cooler? I'm now an official customer of her flower shop. Every month I order a special arrangement to decorate my home. It's my way of supporting her work, and also having a little bit of that art right here at home. The last time we spoke, Maria made a confession that left me deeply moved. Donna Ruth, you were fundamental in this whole story. Me? What do you mean? I asked, surprised. Remember that day you asked me about the flowers and I ended up telling you everything? Or, if you hadn't shown interest, I might never have had the courage to share this story with anyone. And it was talking to you that I realized how proud I was of my work, and that I didn't need to hide it. Guys, imagine how I felt. Sometimes we don't realize how a sincere conversation, a genuine interest in someone else's life, can make all the difference in someone's life. Maria told me that our conversation was what gave her the courage to tell her husband everything. When I saw how positively you reacted, how proud you were of my work, I thought, if a neighbor can understand and support me, why can't my own husband? And do you know what her flower shop's latest project is? They're starting to do social work, taking floral arrangements to hospitals and nursing homes. We want to bring a little beauty and joy to places where people need it most, she explained. The idea is to partner with companies willing to sponsor this social work and also teach recovering patients how to make their own arrangements as occupational therapy. I've spoken to some psychologists, and they said that working with flowers can be very therapeutic. Now, whenever I pass her flower shop downtown, I stop by to see what's new. There are always beautiful arrangements in the window, and customers always come and go satisfied. It's wonderful to see how what started as a necessity has turned into a thriving business. And best of all, every Friday, Maria still makes a point of bringing me a small arrangement to decorate my home. It's my way of thanking you for being the first person I trusted to tell my story, she always says. Girls, this story taught me so much about not judging people by their appearances. How many situations in life do we misinterpret because we don't have all the information? How many times do we miss the opportunity to hear beautiful stories because we're too busy imagining problems? Today, when I see strange situations in the neighborhood, I remember Maria's story. Before creating theories, I prefer to ask questions, talk, and try to understand. Because behind every unusual behavior, there may be a story of struggle, love, and overcoming that is worth knowing. What about you watching? Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever judged a situation and later discovered you were completely wrong? Or have you ever been unfairly judged for something you were doing? Leave your stories in the comments. I love reading and responding to each of yours. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next neighborhood stories. Because look, there's always something interesting happening here in my little corner. By subscribing to the channel, you'll be notified whenever I post new videos. And girls, like this video if you enjoyed Maria's story. Also, let me know what you thought of this whole twist in the comments. I'm so happy to hear your thoughts. Maria's story showed me that sometimes life's most beautiful mysteries are right in front of us, just waiting for us to have the right curiosity and an open heart to understand. What I thought was a scandal turned into one of the most inspiring stories I've ever witnessed. And you know what? Now I have a new friend. Maria and I have become very close since this whole thing. She always comes over for coffee and tells me about the flower shop's new projects, about the most challenging arrangements she's making. Last week, she brought me an arrangement she made especially for me. This one represents our friendship, Mrs. Ruth. Flowers that symbolize gratitude, affection, and complicity. It was so beautiful, with yellow roses, white lilies, and some special greenery. Today, whenever I look at that arrangement on my dining table, I remember this whole story. I remember how important it is not to judge people, how beautiful it is when women help each other, and how love for family can lead us to discover talents we never knew we had. And the best part of all this, Maria's father is cured. She's professionally fulfilled. Her marriage is stronger than ever. And to top it all off, She's helping other women discover their own talents. Folks, if this story isn't proof that life always surprises us, I don't know what is. I, who started by observing a situation through a crack in the curtain, thinking I was about to uncover a scandal, ended up witnessing one of the most beautiful stories of overcoming adversity and family love I've ever seen. What do you guys think? Leave your opinion in the comments. Tell us if you've ever been in similar situations, if you've discovered unexpected talents, if you've ever helped a family member in a creative way like Maria did. Enjoy the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss the next video where I'll tell you another incredible story that happened here in the neighborhood. Because look, after this whole experience, I've learned that it's worth paying attention to the people around us. There's always an interesting story to discover. Until the next video, girls. And remember, sometimes what seems strange on the outside is just a person fighting for their dreams in a way we don't yet understand. It's always worth giving the benefit of the doubt and trying to understand before judging.